for the mind of North America will be fought in the video arena.
Good morning, everyone. I'd like to thank everybody for coming out this morning. This is a very important day for those of us that are involved in the Alberta independence movement. We are publicly releasing a document entitled The Value of Freedom, a draft fiscal plan for an independent Alberta. This will be available online at albertaprosperityproject.com, and will be going live today to the entire province, the entire country, and I guess the entire world for that matter, for people to review. What this document demonstrates, well, first of all, before I get into that, I want to thank all of the people that were involved in putting this together, especially Mr. Dennis Kalma, who is the principal author of this document. There are literally thousands of hours of work that have gone into this document. It's been reviewed by economists, it's been reviewed by bankers, it's been reviewed by actuaries, accountants, and many, many others, including Dr. Beaudry, Mitch Sylvester, LeVar Payne, members of the Alberta Prosperity Project team, as well as other volunteers all the way across the province that have provided their input into what we think is a truly outstanding document that presents an incredible picture for a free and independent Alberta and the fiscal prosperity that Albertans will enjoy the day that they declare independence from Canada and stop sending $70 billion a year in taxes, CPP, and UI to Ottawa, to have only a fraction of that money trickle back to us in so-called federal transfers. What this document demonstrates is that after fully costing all federal services that will now be provided by the independent country of Alberta, including 3% of GDP for an Alberta military, tripling the spend on Indigenous people in this province to lift them out of the abject poverty that the government of Canada has kept them in for over 150 years. Following that, Alberta will be left with and fully paying for all of our present health care, improving our health care, creating the fiscal capacity to cut pension contributions in half while doubling pension payments to pensioners in Alberta. Alberta will be left with a fiscal surplus of between $23.6 billion and $45.5 billion a year after fully paying for all of the things that Ottawa currently pays for in Alberta, including an Alberta military, and tripling the spend on Indigenous people in the province of Alberta. What this demonstrates is that within year one of Alberta independence, the taxes for Albertans overall can be slashed between 33 to 55%, and with the fiscal capacity created by an independent Alberta, and freeing ourselves from federal regulations and federal taxation, that Alberta can literally become the most prosperous country in the world with the highest GDP per capita of any country in the world. So what this document demonstrates, and I want to go a little bit legal here as a lawyer and advise the world of what or advise our politicians in Alberta what the standard of care is for a fiduciary. The standard of care for a fiduciary under Canadian law is that of a reasonably prudent person of business managing their own affairs. Now, my challenge to every elected MLA, cabinet minister, and our premier is that when you finish reading this document and understand how much better off Albertans are going to be post-independence, how can you not be violating your fiduciary obligations to the citizens of Alberta by not pursuing Alberta independence on the basis of the model set out in the fiscal plan for an independent Alberta? That is the question that we are going to be leaving for our politicians, and that we are going to be asking every single Albertan to consider on a going forward basis. This document has been drafted and prepared with an extremely conservative view and extremely conservative estimates as to the economic projections contained in this document. We do not take into account the massive economic growth within the body of this document, the massive economic growth that will follow Alberta independence the minute Alberta declares itself independent. Normal businesses that don't thrive on government subsidies by building giant carbon-sucking machines, normal businesses thrive in a low-tax, low-regulatory environment. This document sets out the framework for one of the lowest taxed, lowest regulated business environments in North America. Business will flock to Alberta, and that business will make the projections in this document seem completely out of date in terms of how low these projections are and how much we've underestimated the fiscal capacity of a future Alberta. Even the projections for future growth contained in this document are extremely conservative. We are looking at a doubling of the size of the Alberta economy within a 20-year period. The reality of it is, with the doubling of oil and gas production in Alberta within 3 to 5 years, which we think is achievable in an independent Alberta, free of all of the overregulation and interference with Ottawa in the industry of Alberta, we see that Alberta's GDP could double within 5 years, not 10 years, not 20 years. And again, it is our view as an organization, that's the Alberta Prosperity Project, chaired by Dr. Dennis Modry, that's here, and our CEO, Mitch Sylvester, that to not follow the program set out in this document is a complete abdication of responsibility and a complete violation of the fiduciary obligations of our elected leaders in Alberta for not pursuing these options and finally get us out of the toxic mess that is our relationship with the federal government of Canada. Those are my remarks, subject to any questions.
If you have any questions, I have a mic here.
Well, I didn't realize that this was going to be this straightforward.
Hello, sir. Started by the Keith with CTV News Calgary. Just a quick question. Where is it here? It's a complicated question. Sorry, just a quick question. If we go independent, do we still use Canadian currency?
Well, right now, what we're talking about is that there'll be a transitional currency. We see the currency likely being the U.S. currency because, of course, the Canadian dollar is a petrodollar largely supported by Alberta. I think the day Alberta declares independent, the Canadian dollar starts trading on par with the Polish zloty. So I would largely supported by Alberta. So I would imagine that we'd initially be trading in U.S. dollars, but there is a plan in this document to develop a made in Alberta currency that would not be a fiat currency. Yes.
Alison Dempster with CBC. What's your response to the Forever Canada petition?
It's a joke, to be honest. It's a bad joke. It's a Polish joke, I guess. It's Thomas Lukaszyk's joke. It's not a petition that we're taking seriously. It's based on a policy question that simply maintains the status quo. The question we'll be filing tomorrow will be a constitutional question based on Section 1.3 of the Clarity Act. And, you know, this Forever Canada group, I mean, does the group consist of anything more than Thomas Lukaczyk, Jason Kenney, and a few other embittered federalists? We're not sure. We certainly don't think that they have the manpower or the organization to gather 300 signatures within 90 days. So it's obvious political distraction. You know, as people may be aware, Thomas Lukaszych was thrown out of the United Conservative Party of Alberta for endorsing Rachel Notley in the last election, so maybe he has a rump of little NDP people around him, but we're certainly not taking him very seriously. I was talking to another media outlet this morning that advised us that Thomas Lukasik is already running around telling everybody that APP's petition question has already been rejected. We haven't submitted it yet. The man is a mischief maker, he's an inveterate liar, and I really have nothing more to say about it than that.
But as you know, there can't be two questions on the same, essentially on the same topic going at the same time.
No, I think that's an incorrect interpretation of the law. We're going to be filing under the new statute, and the question that we're pursuing is a constitutional question that complies with the Clarity Act. It's not a policy question, so there won't be two questions on the same issue. The question that we're filing complies with the Clarity Act. Specifically, does Alberta wish to become a sovereign country and cease being a province of Canada? It's completely different than Thomas Lukasik's question, which was really designed just to make mischief. If you look at his question from a policy perspective, it's designed to, even if the no forces win, all it means is that we're back to the status quo, and then we have to have another referendum vote on whether or not Alberta wants to leave Canada. It's just Lukasik doing what Lukasik does, which is to make mischief and cause trouble for other people. He's not a very serious person, and we don't take him very seriously.
What are you going to advise your followers to do about that petition? Will you advise them to
We don't have followers. We have members and volunteers, so all of them are smart enough on their own to realize that this is not a process that we're going to be participating in. So, that's.
But just given timelines, doesn't he have the advantage? Wouldn't you want your...
I don't think that he has an advantage. The simple fact of the matter is he's not going to get 300,000 signatures, so he doesn't have a petition, and we've already got 250,000 people pledged to sign our petition the minute it goes live. So we're confident that we're going to get our question approved, and that we're going to have our 177,000 signatures long before Mr. Lukasik gets close to 300,000. So that's the approach that we're taking.
Just one more question, just about the timelines again. My understanding, and let me know your understanding of the rules around this, is that even if these are, what-if scenarios, but even if his petition doesn't succeed, there's a 5-year cooling off period before another question can be asked.
These are just these are what-if hypotheticals that make zero sense on the reading of the law. It's an incorrect interpretation of the Act and the statute. Our question is not his question. His question is, can we please, can we maintain the status quo? Our question is a question that's designed by both Keith Wilson and myself to comply with Section 1, Sub 3 of the Clarity Act.
In essence, it's the same thing.
Let me finish. No, don't interrupt me. It's not the same thing. Our question is designed to correspond with Section 1, Sub 3 of the Clarity Act, which is a constitutional question designed to take Alberta out of Canada. Lukasik's question is just a mischief. Thank you.
Sir, just a quick question. How, if it goes ahead with independence, how do you plan to deal with the Aboriginal issue where they say they basically have, they're basically tied to the Crown?
Well, as far as it goes, the whole question of whether or not an independent, like we call our project the Commonwealth of Alberta project, first of all. Second of all, the issue of whether or not we simply promote the Lieutenant Governor to Governor General at the end of the day is an open question for a constitutional conference that's going to follow, and the Indigenous people of Alberta will be participating in that conference. The fiscal plan that we've laid out demonstrates that the fiscal strength of Alberta will allow the amount of money going to Aboriginal communities and Indigenous communities in Alberta to be tripled to close to $5 billion a year, which we think, along with other proposals, will have the chiefs sort of wake up to the idea that Alberta independence is a real opportunity for them. I mean, my question for Indigenous people in Alberta is, why do they want to keep spending $15 billion a year to Quebec as opposed to keeping that money in Alberta to the benefit of all Albertans and Indigenous communities in particular? So, that's the issue that we're taking forward. Obviously, under the Clarity Act, there will be negotiations and constitutional discussions that honor and respect the Indigenous nations of Alberta. The entire program that we are putting forward, and this is actually right in the notes to reader of our document, states expressly that it's important to note that the section dealing with the plan for Alberta's Indigenous nations is drafted with the utmost respect for the sovereign Indigenous people of Alberta. It is no way intended to replace or diminish treaty rights, which will be a required subject for discussion and negotiation in the context of the development of a constitution for the Commonwealth of Alberta, which could include a continued role for the Crown of Alberta in the context of any future constitutional arrangements. So I think that's a complete answer to the question, and we're actually looking forward to having a dialogue with the Indigenous nations of Alberta to demonstrate to them the value of Alberta independence. And I think once people understand the strength of the economic program that we're bringing to Alberta and the value of this to Indigenous nations in Alberta, that they'll wholeheartedly support this at the end of the day. You're welcome.
Can I ask a question, even though I'm carrying the mic around? My question is the 5 parks, Elk Island, Jasper, Banff, Waterton, and Wood Buffalo. Would they stay with Alberta, or would they?
Of course they'd stay in Alberta. They're within the boundaries of what will be the Commonwealth of Alberta, and they're not going to become federal enclaves within the country.
You said the economics are conservative.
Give the microphone, please.
Nobody could hear me in the room. You say the economics, the numbers are conservative. What price of barrel have you used for those economics?
We've pegged it at $60.
At $60. And now when you think of a decline in the use of oil over the coming decades, what's your plan for that?
Well, that's costed in, but our long-term view is that it's kind of like Al Gore saying the oceans are boiling. Every 5 years somebody says that the end of the earth is coming. Nobody has yet to come up with an economical alternative to oil and gas. We're not the Jetsons. This isn't Back to the Future. We're not going to be pouring banana peels and water into the back of cars anytime soon. So we think, the gibbering Stéphane Gibault's projections on peak oil and the fact that we're not going to need oil and gas in 5 years are frankly ludicrous. And, we're quite confident in our numbers going out at least 20 years.
And when it comes to sovereignty, what kind of agreements do you expect to make with BC and Saskatchewan, as though we're not part of Confederation? There'll be a whole bunch of questions that'll have to be answered at the Confederation level between BC and Saskatchewan. Well, what's your plan for that?
Certainly, first of all, most of our trade is north and south still. 75% of Alberta's trade goes north and south. We've already had meetings with the United States, and the United States is very excited about the U.S. administration is very excited about an independent Alberta moving forward. We foresee a free trade agreement, which would be more like a common market agreement with the United States, with an open border, complete free trade on both sides of the U.S.-Alberta border, et cetera. And we would look forward to the same type of relationship with British Columbia and Saskatchewan. Let's face it. I mean, we're interconnected by railways. We're connected by history. There's no reason that our trade, with British Columbia and Saskatchewan would in any way cease or be impaired in an independent Alberta.
But they get their cut right now from the federal government. So, pipelines crossing their land.
They're cut in what sense, sir? I mean, they're both have provinces and they're net contributors to Confederation. So they're not parasitic entities like the government of Quebec that's siphoning $15 billion a year out of Alberta. They're as hard done by Confederation and the present setup of Confederation as Alberta is. So.
Hi, Jeff. Chris Hamilton here. Big fan of you and the Alberta Prosperity Project. You mentioned something in your opening comments. It just had to do with income tax reduction and what it means for a pension plan for people. Could you just state that again? I didn't catch it.
Well, it's in detail in the fiscal plan that we've put out, and there'll be copies actually for CBC and CTV at the back when we're done. But the long and the short of it is the fiscal capacity surplus of Alberta in year one, it would be sufficient if we're applied to tax cuts to maintain all present levels of services, improve levels of services, cut taxes by 33 to 55% in year one. I mean, we could be at zero tax by year 5 on the basis of a doubling of current Alberta oil and gas production, which we think is very easily done within the next 5 years. And, the same thing with pensions. The fiscal capacity surplus of the province of the current fiscal capacity surplus that we're projecting would easily allow for a slashing of pension contribution rates and a doubling of pension payouts, in as little as 5 years, given the fiscal capacity surplus that we're creating. And for all of those people that are being lied to by, liberal operatives and other people that are anti-independence, saying that, oh, if Alberta becomes independent, you're going to lose your CPP. That's a complete lie. It's misinformation. You'll be as able to collect your CPP at a free and independent Alberta as you would if you lived in Costa Rica, Portugal, Spain, Florida, California, wherever. It's a legal obligation on the part of the pension fund, to make those payments. Those payments would continue, and in any event, that would be such a small portion of the fiscal surplus that if Canada decided to play games with pensions, it would be easily funded out of provincial revenue or out of revenue of an independent Alberta without breaking a sweat or putting a significant dent into the fiscal capacity surplus of the independent Commonwealth of Alberta. So, we're really looking forward to the day that we have a yes vote to take Alberta out of Canada and we stop sending $70 billion a year to Ottawa.
Just one more question, a follow-up to what I was asking about earlier with the petition. Just because of my understanding, what we're hearing from Elections Alberta is that if, I'm quoting them here, if a proposal application is approved and the petition is unsuccessful, another similar citizen initiative proposal application cannot go forward for 5 years.
Well, your understanding's wrong.
Could I just ask the question?
Oh, I thought that was the question.
This is the information we're getting from Elections Alberta. And so given that, and given sort of how things are playing out with this Forever Alberta petition, how concerned are you that you won't be able to ask your question?
We're not concerned at all, frankly. That our question is different. Their question is designed as a mischief. It's designed to basically maintain the status quo. Our question is a different question, and we don't believe that it would be caught by that, by that suggestion of Elections Alberta. Thank you.
Hey, Jeff. My name is Cade Scott. I came here to meet Jeff and the others and to support. And I think a lot of people are really missing how hard the folks that are involved with the Alberta Prosperity Project are working. And it's not just them. There's a lot of groups in Alberta, whether they be small groups or other political parties or individuals like myself, who are talking to everyone and working together, doing research. And Alberta has so much potential. And I just want to make a comparison with independence and economics. Is the country of Belize, which used to be part of the Commonwealth of Britain and is now an independent country. It's 165 out of the world countries as far as its economy, but it's growing, and they've just discovered oil. And the question is, this is one of the countries that we can be a trading partner with, but also because they've just discovered oil, we can be a true partner to help them with their struggle. So where in your research, you're obviously looking for customers as you're looking for independence and building Alberta, correct?
Obviously, yeah. So no, but as far as it goes, the whole purpose of this exercise today is to demonstrate on paper that on a going forward basis, an independent Alberta will be far better off than an Alberta within Confederation. Obviously, new markets will open up as we go, but quite frankly, on the plan going forward, we foresee no difficulty whatsoever for Alberta meeting the targets set out in this document, given the conservative nature of the targets that are set and the economic projections that were used.
Hi, Jeff. My name is Paul. I'm a supporter of APP and also a volunteer. Question I have is kind of related to currency. I've read on the APP site, I think I've listened to a lot of podcasts by yourself or Keith, or you also said just earlier that as soon as we declare independence, the Canadian dollar is going to plunge. Is that correct?
That would be my view of
so
how the world is going to work.
I just don't want to interpret it incorrectly. So for us, a lot of, I call ourselves little people who are in support of the movement, that we don't have billions of dollars in our banks. And with the little bit of money that we have, if the Canadian dollar plunge overnight, how do we handle that during the transition?
Well, I think everybody needs to, as we get closer to this and closer to a yes vote, I think people, that have money, that invested money in savings, probably want to look at a safe haven currency like the U.S. dollar. I mean, there's going to be a period of transition. There's going to be 3 or 4 months where things will likely be slightly lumpy. The good news is that an independent Alberta, will have the money and the fiscal capacity in order to help citizens, through those periods. And as we get closer and closer to the referendum date, we'll be having bankers and economists and whatever out in public talking to people about what they can do, to protect themselves and protect their savings on a going forward basis. But quite frankly, just like Carney's Canada, I don't see the Canadian dollar having a great future the minute Alberta leaves Canada.
Just want to add to the point is that, as Mr. Rath has pointed out, there will be a significant reduction in the cost of goods as well, because you'll be removing all of those taxes on the goods. So even though the dollar is less, your purchasing power isn't going to be reduced that much.
Yeah, hi. So on the currency issue, are you open to the idea of Alberta regulated financial institutions having 1% of their assets in, say, something like gold, maybe silver, maybe copper, maybe oil? Because in that case, Mark Carney is talking about spending $150 trillion on the green initiative and is a big fan of central bank digital currency. Alberta actually going its own with 1% in gold, for example, would mean that even if he tries to collapse the Canadian dollar and move toward a central bank digital currency, Alberta would be protected. How do you feel about that?
Well, I think anything that we can do to move away from the Mark Carney dollar. I mean, I was talking. We have some amazing volunteers within APP, and a gentleman that came forward last week just retired from the Bank of Canada, and as an economist, and he shocked me. We were having a conversation, and he said, he says, if everybody's wondering why everything costs twice as much, he said it's because Carney advised Trudeau to double the M2 money supply in Canada. So literally in the last 5 years, Trudeau and the federal government have doubled the amount of money in circulation. So anybody understanding basic economics, you double the amount of something, you cut its value in half. So obviously an independent Alberta is going to want to defend itself from Mr. Carney, who we regard as an existential threat to the province of Alberta, and his ongoing currency manipulation to the detriment of every working man and woman in the province, currently in the province of Alberta. Any more questions, or we got it covered this morning?
I got questions from the audience here who are watching online here. One of the questions kind of relates to money. It says, how much of Canada's debt will Alberta be obligated to pay if we separate?
That's my favorite question. None. And the reason for that is that Alberta has put over $750 billion into Canada since the inception of equalization. And having done work like this and worked with actuaries on large settlement files that I've been involved in over the years, I would wager that if you took the $750 billion and then added up all of the interest, even at Bank of Canada rates, using the high accelerators of the rates in the early 80s to present, the debt that Canada owes Alberta is in the trillions, not hundreds of billions. So Alberta will be leaving debt-free. Will be retaining the national parks as sovereign Alberta territory, and we'll be working with Alberta's Indigenous nations, with regard to environmental stewardship of this province on a going forward basis, based on the needs and concerns of Albertans, not these ridiculously imposed, external carbon mandates and, requirements for carbon sucking machines that are being imposed on us by ridiculous people in Ottawa that think spending $50 billion Alberta tax dollars trying to decarbonize Alberta oil makes any economic sense whatsoever.
Another question that was from the audience, and it's kind of like answer, I guess. this document you're referring to is available at the Alberta Prosperity website?
It will be available online. I'm not sure if it's live now. I hope it is. But if it isn't, it will be, within the next hour, I would think. And we urge everybody to share it with all of their friends and family, because when you read this document, again, I can't state this enough, every elected politician in this province that does not pursue independence on the basis of this document will be violating their fiduciary obligations to the citizens that elected them.
Another question from the audience here is, will individuals with disabilities be provided for, especially those who are unable to work?
The document that we've proposed and that we're putting forward does not cut any social services in Alberta whatsoever. So this is, Alberta healthcare remains the same. It's fully costed within this plan. All of the existing Alberta government expenditures within the present Alberta government budget are fully costed within this plan. There would be no interference with that. The only thing I can say about healthcare and people with disabilities and pensioners and so on is that with the massive fiscal capacity surplus that's being created by this document, there's no reason that, even better plans and programs wouldn't be available for them in the future. So, that would be my answer to that question.
Any other questions? I'm going to pass the microphone.
Yeah, Dr. Baudry, do you have anything to add before we wrap up?
No, I don't have anything to add, Jeff. I think you did a great job. Jeff, I don't have anything to add. I think you did a great job of introducing the document. Congratulations.
Thank you. All right, well, thank you everyone for coming out. It's, as always, an honor, a privilege, and a pleasure to be here. Thank you.